new virus has been discovered that has pandemic potential.
We need realistic solutions that recognise everybody in society, not just the elite.
All indications on current rates are for extinction.
We've got no choice, we've got to get through this.
I think we are now ready as a community, as a society, to take the next step.
So, here we go.
We have to build resilient communities.
A substantially greater amount of renewable energy.
Hundreds of thousands of protesters took to the streets in peace.
What a day for love, for equality, for respect.
Let's get started.
Well, 1.5 years to a pandemic and Zoom still likes to tease us a bit. Welcome to the 2021 Monash University final of the 3-minute thesis and Visualise Your Thesis competition. I am Dr. Susan Carlin, the MC of this event, and I am so glad that you are all joining us. I'd like to start by acknowledging the country that we are on at the moment. We are on the land of the Kulin Nation, and they are the traditional owners of this land, and I would like to pay my respect to their elders past and present. And as this is a virtual event, I'd like to pay my respect to the elders past and present of any of the lands where any of you might find yourselves on today. Okay. Welcome. This is exciting. This event is a highlight event for myself and for many others at the university. It's an event that allows the students to showcase their research. And I don't need to tell you all that this has been a pretty different year, a pretty difficult year, and it's been a challenge for many. And it's a challenge that all of our finalists tonight have successfully approached head on, as you will see. It is an exciting benefit to be doing this in a virtual format because it allows not only our staff and students from all our offshore campuses to participate and join us, and I really warmly welcome all of you, but I also want to welcome all of the friends and families and supporters that have joined us from around the world as well. We are so glad that you are here with us, and you do all have an important part to play in deciding the awards, so stay tuned, don't zone out. And like I said, I don't need to tell you that we're in a pandemic, and there do have to be some benefits to us joining in virtually. So I really hope that at least some of you are joining us in your pajamas. Maybe you've got your hair in curlers, you're eating cereal out of the box. I endorse all of that, and I hope you're all very comfortable. I'm going to start now by introducing our esteemed judging panel. Our first judge tonight is Professor Matthew Gillespie. He is the Vice Provost of Academic Affairs. As Chair of the governing body for graduate research, Professor Matthew Gillespie provides strategic leadership to support the continuing improvement of Monash's academic reputation in graduate research. Professor Gillespie is trained in microbiology and immunology, which means unlike the people that you are arguing with on Facebook about COVID, he actually knows a thing or two about the human immune system, and isn't that a good thing? He's also known for his work as a bone cell biologist and a cancer researcher. His research and PhD students were deeply embedded with a number of pharmaceutical companies, and importantly today, he is the chair of the judging panel. Our next judge tonight is Dr. Nurin Weiss, Director of Research and Collections at Museums Victoria. Now, unfortunately, Dr. Weiss is unable to join us today, but she is the Director for Research and Collections at Museums Victoria and a Monash alumni. Dr. Nurin Weiss has expert knowledge of science and the scientific environment and an established reputation in public communication. She established ScienceWorks and as an innovator in STEM-based learning experiences. Nurin has a background in biochemistry, immunology and cell biology, having worked as a medical researcher in both Melbourne and New York. Our third judge tonight is Fabian Moroney, who is the Chief Marketing Officer and Executive Director, Admissions and Communications. Fabian is responsible for delivering the best automated and personalised communications, marketing and conversion experience and outcomes for all Monash audiences. Fabian has also driven the development of the disruptive, award-winning If You Don't Like It, Change It campaign and the newly launched Change It 2.0 that we commenced our event with tonight. And our final judge for this evening is Professor Rebecca Brown, Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Research and Senior Vice President of Monash University. Professor Brown provides leadership, engagement and advocacy in shaping and leading Monash University's research agenda within the changing higher education landscape. She's responsible for development and implementation of Monash's research infrastructure strategy, expanding research capability, performance and impact, and of course, more recently, Monash University's graduate research programs. And all of the judging panel here tonight for one or other of my roles at the university are actually my boss. So a very warm welcome from me in particular to you tonight. Now, on that note, I would like to invite Professor Rebecca Brown to give the opening address. Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carland. What a fantastic opening. I can attest I'm wearing sneakers and a suit jacket, and I've got, because I'm at home and I've got one of my two pooches, she's laying over my feet here. So I'm very much looking forward to this evening, and I applaud you for encouraging everyone to be as relaxed and as comfortable as possible, because that is one of the benefits afforded to us in lockdown. It's certainly a great honour to be here with you all this evening. I realise that the awards this year are different to previous years, but actually it's my first awards event this year, so I'm very excited to be here. It's a very important annual event for all our graduate research students, not least our graduate research office and all our research officers across the faculties and Monash more broadly. And it's a chance for all our graduate research students to come across together from faculties, campuses, both within Australia and overseas. It's a chance for us to network, to share our stories, and to really get a great appreciation of the breadth of the terrific graduate research being done right across the university. And I appreciate it's not possible for us to be together in person this year, but I'm really delighted that we've got people online joining us from across the Monash family, from our campuses here in Australia, from our Malaysian campus, from our IIT Monash Research Academy in India. I thank you all for making the time to be here with us tonight to support, and you really are supporting the outstanding work of these doctoral candidates. As I mentioned just before, tonight's my first awards ceremony in my new role as Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Research. And the work coming out of our graduate researcher community is so exciting for me to be part of and to watch. It's critical to where we want to go as a world-leading university. And as part of the judging panel for this evening, I've been lucky enough to see tonight's entries already and in different formats. So I hope that, like me, you're left feeling amazed and optimistic after seeing them. Everyone joining us tonight to see the presentations from our finalists, I want to acknowledge all of you. I want to acknowledge your research supervisors and other mentors, to all your research and professional staff and the faculties that you come from and the campuses you come from. And importantly, I want to recognise your family and friends for being here to support you. What you're about to see is these students communicate their outstanding research in the most creative and compelling ways. It's not only their outstanding research, which it is, but the way in which they tell the story of the meaning and their impact is so critical to the future of our people and our planet. This is part of the way for having impact. Watching the presentations, I have to say though, that my first thought was I'm really glad that it's a relatively recent innovation. I'm thinking about my 100-word thesis over 20 years ago, and if I was asked to present it in 3 minutes. I don't even know if I could still do that now and do that well. So I'm really in awe. There are many tens of thousands of words in theses, as we all know, and they're very important, but to condense them into 3 minutes with a real message is really a challenge. I mean, I reflect on my own PhD journey. I'm a civil engineer by training, and then I went and did my PhD in environmental sociology. So I did a big switch to the social sciences, and that was my first field of study. Did not end up being my doctoral field of study, but I was so passionate about having an impact in the world, like all of these finalists do. What I can say is that I'm in absolute awe of these students and what they've put in place to communicate the value of what they're doing. While I'm glad myself I didn't have to do this, particularly under these very challenging circumstances, I'm really glad that it's now more a core competency of our PhD graduates. These are crucial skills, crucial capabilities for a successful research career. How you tell the story of your work, it's got to have the excellence, it's got to have the evidence, it's got to move the dial in terms of our international knowledge on whatever phenomena you're examining. But to be able to explain it and explain it in compelling ways that connect to people outside of your area is a real capability. Not just the language that your supervisors or your peers know, but to an audience of non-experts, which is what we all are. And we are the beneficiaries, and sometimes unknowingly, of what it is that you're researching and what you're expressing. And in the future, I mean, to have this sort of capability, you're going to have to be able, you can now better communicate, not just with the public, but with experts from other disciplines. It could be future donors, philanthropists, government ministers and policymakers. It could be the communities who need clean water or heart patients that need a new treatment. Telling the story of our research is essential for the research itself and to have the biggest impact on the world. So let me, because I won't have a chance at the end, to congratulate all of tonight's finalists. I know it's been a long journey. PhDs always are. You've already been chosen as your faculty's finalists for this year's competition. So you're already in incredible company. You've already achieved something extremely significant. But I really hope it's been a rewarding journey. You're probably all exhausted, but I hope it's been a really rewarding journey. And that you've actually taken this additional time and effort to use all your creative energy to develop this skill. Just know it's going to be essential for your future success. It's really important capability. Congratulations to you all. The standard of your research and your storytelling is just so high. It makes me really excited and proud of the work that we do here at Monash, and the fact that your work is going to contribute to solving some of the greatest challenges that we have for years to come. So I thank you all, and I'm looking forward to this evening.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. So now on to what is the 3MT? What are we actually here for? Well, every year, each university around the world hold the 3-minute thesis competition to celebrate the exciting research that's being conducted by PhD students. So this is how it works. The best way for you to think about how it works is, I imagine that many of you that are in the audience tonight have, the friends and family members of the candidates here tonight. There may have been a point where you asked your friend or your family member who's doing a PhD, what actually is it that you're doing? And as the PhD candidate tried to explain it to you, your eyes, no doubt, glazed over in boredom and confusion. Now, I can say that because I have a PhD and I know how bad we are at often trying to explain it in ways that are accessible, let alone interesting to the average person. So enter the 3-minute thesis. In this competition, competitors face the challenge of condensing their 3, sometimes more years, complex years of the PhD research into a 3-minute presentation for a general audience. We've got 12 finalists this year. They're each competing for the winning title. And these finalists that we're seeing tonight, they have all gone through months of rounds of training. They've all either won their faculty rounds of this competition, and for some of them, even their whole campus rounds to be here tonight. And we also have a wildcard entry, which makes it quite exciting. It all culminates tonight in someone will be awarded the crown, and they will be the 2021 Monash winner, and they will walk away with a cool $5,000 if you don't mind, and they will have a chance to represent Monash at the Asia Pacific final later this year. Our runner-up gets a cool $2,000, so it's a pretty lucrative competition. And you, the audience, also have an important role to play because you get to choose the people's choice for the 3-minute thesis. So at the end of all the presentations, you'll have the chance to vote for your favourite. This is basically Eurovision for smart people, is the way to think about it. So make sure you have your mobile phone or your laptop ready and the name of your favourite presenter, and stay tuned for that because after we've seen all the presentations, I'm going to get you to vote. Okay, now on to the important competition rules. The competition rules have been amended slightly to accommodate the virtual format, but the key features still remain. Presentations can only be, obviously, 3 minutes and are considered to commence from the moment the competitor starts speaking. They are only allowed to have a single static slide. They're not allowed to have slide transitions, any fancy animations, nothing like that. And this slide can be visible throughout, or they can cut to it if they want. Now, the 3-minute audio must be a single cut as well. There can be no sound edits or breaks. Participants are not allowed to use any additional props. So they're not allowed to use costumes or musical instruments or lab equipment. And, you know, after that unfortunate year when we did have the incident with the tambourine, it's really important that we do pay close attention to these rules. Presentations also must be spoken. So no one is allowed to sing, no one is allowed to rap, although I do have it on good authority that Fabian Moroney will be rapping later. So I think that's something for us all to look forward to. And lastly, no additional electronic media is allowed. So they're not allowed to use sound or video files. The decision of the adjudicating panel is final. You're not allowed to bribe them. So no matter what the judges put in the chat of the Zoom, please do not attempt to bribe the judges. It's really important that we respect these rules. Okay, let's go right now into the actual competition, the bit that you have been waiting for. Our first competitor tonight from the Faculty of Arts is Matthew Holden. His presentation is the Translators Visibility, Ethics, Subjectivity, and the Task of the Translator in the 21st Century.
We read works in translation all the time, but we rarely reflect on the role of the translator. Translators have largely been invisible. But a recent controversy over the commissioning of a Dutch translator for the work of Amanda Gorman, the Black American poet who read Joe Biden's inauguration, has thrust the translator into the spotlight. Translators have been swept up into the very public debates about identity politics. One of the key questions in this debate has been who may translate, who has permission to write on behalf of another. And what does this mean? But does the translator's identity really matter in a translation project? In my research, I will explore ways in which I believe it does. In the practice part of my research, I'm translating Compagnia Luna by Barbara Balzerani. Balzerani was a militant in Italy's Red Brigades, and she took part in the 1978 kidnapping and murder of the Christian Democrat leader Aldo Moro. During the kidnapping, the 5 men of Moro's escort were also killed by the Red Brigades. So why am I translating the work of a former terrorist and convicted murderer? Well, part of the answer is because in 1978, when I was 15, Joe Strummer of British punk band The Clash wore a Red Brigades t-shirt on stage at a Rock Against Racism concert. The Red Brigades were appropriated by popular culture as a symbol of youthful rebellion, and I grew up in that culture. Compagna Luna is Balzerani's attempt to come to terms with the meaning of her experiences in the Red Brigades and to account for how a young working-class woman from a provincial Italian city made the decision to turn to violence in pursuit of social and political change. But what are the ethics of translating this book, of giving it a wider audience? And what do I bring to this project that another translator might not? In answering these questions, my research will reflect on how my identity and my relationship to this book influences my translation practice. My research will explore translation as a complex and not always conscious engagement of a particular translator with a particular text at a particular moment in time. In reflecting on how my practice produces the translation of this book that the audience will read, my research will show that the translator's identity does, in fact, matter.
Thank you, Matt. And I don't think you could have fit more timely topics into a single thesis if you tried. Terrorism, who gets to translate, ethics, there's a lot in there. Excellent work, Matt. All right, our next competitor is from the Faculty of Education. This is Ahmed Junaidi. And Ahmed is looking at English student teachers' appropriation of scientific concepts.
Teaching English is a movement. It is the teaching of how to use the language, teaching about the language, teaching about the world through the language, and teaching how to change that world through the language. And for this, we want to train the best English teachers. But how? How do we train English teachers? We tend to think that teaching the theories of teaching English will do just fine. But what theories? Do we give them the philosophy of education? Do we teach them the science of language? Do we teach them the British, Australian, and American culture? Do we teach them the methods of teaching and the curriculum that the nation is trying to implement? The country where I am from, Indonesia, teach the future teachers all of the above. The language, the methods, the linguistics, the curriculum, the culture, and the national ideology. But when we teach the future teachers about these theories or concepts, how do they use it? We need to know this. Knowing how they use it in their teaching is the key to know how to better teach them to teach. So this is what my research is about. I wanted to know how the student teachers of English use the large amount of theories in their teaching. So, by using the theory of how people gain and use knowledge, I dig deep into the minds of my 6 participants. I observed them, I talked to them, I interviewed them, I read their documents, and I read their journals. And what I discovered is striking. Of the 6 student teachers, 4 of them followed the method that the government asked them to do. 1 of them even followed the method very religiously. 1 of them wanted to, but failed, because his students kept screaming they wanted to leave the class 30 minutes earlier, so the teacher gave up. And what's most interesting is the 2 of them rejected the theories and the methods demanded by the government. These are the rebels. They're rebellious. They don't follow the rules. But why? And is it bad? Well, I don't think so. They believe that their ways of teaching is better for them and better for their students. They have the thinking that the methods demanded by the government doesn't give much room for learning for their students. And this is what we have to reflect on. There are theories that are beyond the student teacher's comprehension. There are risks of teaching too much. There are theories that aren't for everyone. Preparing the reflective teacher is then the key. This consideration should go into the teacher education curriculum. And I believe by better designing the teacher education curriculum, we have better chance of making better English teachers and better English learners. And through that, creating a more communicative, understanding, and more connected world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. I like the idea of rebellious teachers. It's a very cool concept. Okay, next from the Faculty of Engineering, we have Shivani Veeraraghavan, who is talking to us about self-driving cars in the body, understanding how sperm swim.
Hello everyone, I'm Shivani and I'll be talking about some naturally occurring self-driving cars found in the body. I'm referring to sperm. One of nature's many wonders and biggest unsolved mysteries is how this microscopic creature manages to swim on its own and even steer itself in the right direction. It's powered by what we can call an internal engine, and it's also got different kinds of sensors that let it pick up all sorts of environmental cues on its way to the destination, which is the egg. An example of such an environmental cue is the presence of walls or surfaces. It turns out that sperm can somehow sense that there's a wall nearby and they'll swim towards it. And when they get close to the wall, they suddenly change their swimming style and start swimming very differently. So how does that happen? To answer that question, we built our own virtual sperm by thinking of it as a flexible, microscopic, self-driving car. And we'll keep our virtual sperm minimalistic. We'll just give it an engine and one kind of sensor that gives it the ability to sense how the fluid around it is flowing. Why do we choose that kind of sensor? Well, as the sperm swims, you'd imagine that it'd be pushing the fluid around it. This fluid then goes around, comes back and pushes the sperm back. And that's what I've tried to indicate there using those blue lines. But you'll also notice that on top of the sperm there are two blue lines, but on the bottom there's just one. And that's because on the bottom there's a surface. And when there's a surface, the fluid's gonna flow differently. So we keep that in mind and we take our virtual sperm and let it swim near a wall. We switch on its fluid sensor and it's able to feel the wall and it swims differently. We switch off its fluid sensor and it's no longer able to feel the wall. So what this reveals is that natural sperm probably have the ability to sense exactly how the fluid around them is flowing, and they can use that information to change how they swim. But why is that important? Well, sperm in their natural environment swim in this maze-like structure filled with fluid that flows in all sorts of complicated ways. But when we design artificial reproduction technology, the sperm are made to swim in completely the opposite kind of environment. There are no walls, the fluid is different, and everything's pretty simple compared to what happens in nature. And maybe that's one of the reasons why artificial reproduction technology still has a really low success rate of only around 33%. But we can change that if we have a better understanding of how sperm sense and interact with their environment. And so I hope that my work, along with the work of many others, will help more families in need of this valuable technology. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Shivani. That was a very exciting presentation. I think a lot of people would be very interested in that research. Perhaps also Elon Musk. I can imagine him calling you to see if he could use any of your research for his own self-driving cars. Coming up next from IITB, the whole campus, we have Karuna Veeramani, and her topic is Let Us Flow Towards a Safer Tomorrow.
If we were to travel down the memory lane to our 10th grade chemistry labs and recall the unique blue of copper sulfate, or the frightful frizz of sodium pellet, or the pungency of ammonia, that will be a nostalgic trip indeed. However, does industrial chemistry give you that same nostalgic smile? I presume not, and as a practicing chemist, I certainly cannot blame you for that. Because right from the Great Chicago Fire that happened in the 1800s to the Georgia chemical disaster just a few months ago, history has repeatedly stood witness to a century of industrial mishaps in the form of gas tank leaks and explosions. According to the Red Cross Federation, 2 million every year are affected due to chemical disasters, and 1 of 2 explosions happen because of poor process control. Well, Why does an explosion occur in the first place? Consider a chemical reaction A plus B giving C. Typically in an industry, a large tank is taken, gallons of A and B are dumped in to get C. That looks pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Well, it's not. This sudden and abrupt mixing generates an uncontrolled amount of heat, huge enough to create an explosion. True, this could be avoided by mixing A and B slowly, but that will make the overall reaction slow as well. So you see, it's possible to achieve only either control or speed at a time, but never both. So, is it possible to achieve both at the same time? Absolutely yes. And my PhD aims at enabling this very transition. Consider the water pipe we use in our gardens to water plants. The moment you turn on the tap, water starts to gush out at the control and speed you exert using the tap. So, imagine doing the above reaction through this pipe. Simply take a pipe with two inlets, usher in A and B, and wait to get C at the other end. What are the advantages? 1. Small volumes get mixed at a time, hence there is no abrupt heat generation, so you have achieved control. And 2. The flow of A and B can be individually customized by you, so you have achieved speed as well. Does that sound too far-fetched? Well, my experimental results prove that thermally unstable reactions which take 24 hours to complete through the typical tank method can happen through flow in an absolutely safe manner within merely 30 minutes. So, it's now time to visualize industrial chemistry, which was only either fast or safe, now becoming both fast and safe. Come, let's smile and flow towards a safer tomorrow.
Thank you, Karuna. I love that you managed to condense a reaction that normally took 24 hours into 30 minutes. And I want to know, what are you going to do with the other 23 hours and 30 minutes in the day? You've got to fill that somehow. Our next contestant is from the Faculty of IT. Sarah Jafar Baiki is here to ask us, who reads your life story?
Do you know what information you can get from your DNA? Have you ever thought about having your genome tested? In 2013, actress Angelina Jolie realized she has a high risk of breast cancer using her genomic information, so she had surgery to remove her breasts. You could also do genome testing to find out about your characteristics, current and possible future diseases, chances of having a child with a genetic disorder, and even your parents and ancestors. DNA data tells your unique life story. As the scientists who discovered the DNA structure said, our fate is in our genes, not in the stars. Now, when you do genome testing and your data is stored, think, who else can access your life story? You may want your clinician to read it, and maybe you're happy for researchers to work on it, but probably no one else. The DNA testing service MyHeritage was attacked by hackers in 2018, exposing 92 million of its accounts. Last year, the scientific journal Nature published an article regarding genetic discrimination by Australian insurance companies, which may refuse your coverage based on your potential future diseases. Even think bigger, hackers or terrorists may design targeted pandemics. The ideal world is where we have our genomic information while we also have control over who else can read it. That's why I'm doing this research. The first part of my work is to ensure your genomic data is securely stored and is readable only by who you want, like your clinician, not your insurance company. And for this, I am investigating the use of cryptographic techniques. I have designed a novel model named PargentDB that uses keyword searchable encryption, encrypts your genomic data, and puts it on a server or cloud without compromising security. This way, researchers and clinicians can search for information and execute queries on encrypted life stories. Thus, our model ensures your data confidentiality and also makes sure the query execution experience is not affected or delayed. Our work makes the search time 100 times faster than previous works. The second part of my work ensures you are in control of your life book at all times, which means you can give consent for research and medical care and take your consent back whenever you want. I'm adding this functionality to my new model while still considering your lifebook confidentiality. So, your genomic data tells your life story. It is unique, and if leaked, you can't change it like your password. But don't worry, my advice for you, go for genome testing and get the benefits out of it like what Angelina did. And our role, we try to make sure your life story is read securely and with your control.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'm glad you said we can't change it like our password, because I can never remember my password. Our next contestant is from the Faculty of Law. Leovitis Cabarubius is speaking to us today about her thesis looking at locating women's right to food in development work.
Did you know that there are nearly 690 million hungry people in the world today? This is despite the fact that there is more than enough food produced for every single person on the planet. The problem is, there are various inequalities affecting people's access to food. The largest number of hungry people are in Asia Pacific. Now, this region also has one of the world's major multilateral development banks and funder of development projects, including food security interventions. The Asian Development Bank, or ADB, has a major role in the food security situation of the region. The question is, do ADB's interventions promote the rights of the populations most vulnerable to hunger? My thesis analyzes ADB's policies and projects using the Human Right to Food framework. Why? Because the Human Rights framework has a particular focus on vulnerable populations, and because the right to food has been affirmed in legally binding instruments agreed upon by governments around the world. So ADB is comprised of governments legally obligated to implement the right to food. In addition, I argue that as an international organization and a subject of international law, ADB has an obligation to implement this right. Now, this human rights framework that I use in this thesis is complemented by a substantive gender equality perspective conceptualized under international law. Why gender? Because hunger is also a gender issue. Women are disproportionately affected by hunger due to gender-based inequalities affecting their ability to access food. So I analyze whether ADB's policies and projects recognize, first, that women are in a vulnerable and disadvantaged position in accessing resources due to deep-seated forms of inequalities. Second, that measures are therefore included to address this disadvantage. And third, that these measures can empower women to participate in decision-making on interventions that affect their lives. The goal is to see which of the policies can be replicated, but more importantly, to critically analyze the limitations and the ways in which the bank's work can be better aligned with human rights and substantive equality. Through this, ADB can better help women overcome their barriers so they can equally access the benefits of food security projects. Therefore, women, the right to food of women can be put at the center of development interventions, and ADB has an improved potential to contribute to the realization of women's right to food.
Thank you for that, Leovitis. I am astounded at what you are attempting to do with your thesis and thrilled. If you can bring better human rights into banks and have better food access for women, I think, you probably deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. So congratulations on that fantastic presentation. Our next competitor tonight is from MARTA, and this is Julian O'Shea. And Julian's presentation is entitled Vehicle for Change.
There was an article that came out this month that said that cars, in particular US pickup trucks, have gotten so big they're almost the same size as the tanks that were used during World War II. Now, my research is all around designing and developing alternative ways to navigate the city, because I don't believe you have to be in something as big as an M4 Sherman tank to go and get the groceries. Now, the way we've moved has changed in the last 18 months. Due to the pandemic, people haven't wanted to cram into trains and trams, and with the bushfires fresh in people's minds, they're also looking for lower carbon alternatives. And this really is an important topic. Transport's one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases, and the personal motor car is one of the biggest contributors within that sector. And there are alternatives out there. Now, you might look at this and wonder, what is that all about? This is a velomobile, and it's a human-powered vehicle. It's also one of the most efficient vehicles ever created. Just to show you how efficient it is, in a vehicle designed like this, the fastest speed ever recorded by one person pedaling was over 140 kilometers per hour. And a different design, the world's most efficient vehicle, again uses this design, and a single litre of petrol, it could travel 6,000 kilometers. Now you might look at this and go, this will never take off, this will never happen. But it turns out that micromobility, that is vehicles under 500 kilograms, are already here. In the last 12 months, in parts of Europe, e-bikes have started outselling traditional bikes, and it's predicted by the end of the decade, they'll outsell motor cars. If you walked outside right now onto the streets, you might see an electric kick scooter go by. Now, this was a design and a type of vehicle that you just wouldn't see 10 years ago, so things are already changing. As another example, if I pulled out my phone right now and ordered some food, I'd expect the person to arrive in something like this, an electric e-bike. Now, they may not necessarily even be pedaling, just using the throttle, and that shows that the people that are in the city every day are choosing smaller forms of transport, but there's also scope to design new designs and new vehicles. As part of my research, I've designed and built a solar-powered kick scooter, something that can charge by itself while it's parked and left outside. The other part of my research is communicating the value of these types of vehicles to the public. Because if we want clean air, to fight climate change and to provide safe and sustainable forms of transport for all, I believe we all need to be a vehicle for change.
Thanks, Julian. And I don't know who would tell you that they don't like the look of that little red car. That looks like my dream car. So well done. If you do nothing more than design that car, 10 out of 10. Our next contestant or competitor tonight is from the MNHS. It's Penny Wiley. Penny will be talking to us about very important proteins make very important people.
A VIP is a very important person, like a head of state or a celebrity, or even our own children. Most of us dream of having a family and children of our own, but sadly in Australia, 1 in 6 couples has difficulty getting pregnant. And in around 40% of these cases, this is due to a problem with the sperm. Now normally, a man will produce around 1,500 sperm a second. So that's 270,000 sperm during this 3-minute talk, which is actually pretty amazing. Good effort, boys. But unfortunately, 1 in 100 men don't produce any sperm at all, and this is called Azuspermia. In these pictures on my slide, you can compare a normal human testis tubule with an Azuspermia tubule. On the left, you can see there are lots of germ cells inside the tubule and the characteristic sperm near the centre. But on the right is completely different. The only cells inside the tubule are the Sertoli cells, and they don't mature into sperm. So how does this happen? Well, our lab has identified a VIP, a very important protein called important 5 or IPO5 for short. This protein acts like a truck. It picks up and transports a very specific set of cargo from the cytoplasm of a cell and delivers it into the nucleus where it's unpacked and put to work. We know that if you deliberately delete IPO5 in the germ cells, the cells that will eventually become sperm, they don't survive. No germ cells, no sperm, just like what we see in men with Azuspermia. So clearly the cargo that IPO5 is delivering into the germ cell nucleus is essential for their development. As part of my PhD project, I'm identifying what that cargo is. What's in those little brown boxes? And this will tell us about the proteins that are critical for germ cell and ultimately sperm development. So you might be wondering how I'm going to do this. Well, it's almost impossible to study normal human testis samples, so I'm using a mouse model as a substitute. First, I'll isolate and break open the germ cells. Then I'll capture the IPO5 truck and its cargo using a special antibody. The samples will then be loaded onto a machine called a mass spectrometer, which will measure the size of the cargo, a bit like scanning the barcode on a box to see what it is. From there, we'll be able to identify what each of these important cargo proteins is. And I hope that this project will help us understand how and why conditions like Azuspermia exist, and provide avenues for developing new therapies so families can keep making their very own little VIPs. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. I love that you're doing such important research and that you also managed to include a pun in the title of your 3-minute thesis. Great combination. Our next competitor is from Monash, Malaysia, Min Yi Chow, and her presentation is entitled A Kiss That Drives Brain Tumour Aggressive.
Do you know 1 in 3 of us have a chance to develop cancer in our lifetime? Well, the chances for us to get cancer are considered high, but we don't have to worry so much about this because with the advances of medical research, many common cancers are curable now, in which their curing rates have risen to 90% and more. However, not every cancer patient is that lucky. There is a deadly brain tumor known as glioblastoma that is so aggressive that even the use of therapy combining both radiotherapy and chemotherapy failed to defeat it. It generally kills the patient within 1 year time. Glioblastoma is a highly aggressive brain tumor that has the ability to invade throughout the surrounding healthy brain tissues within a short time. The spreading of this tumor throughout the patient brain has been the main challenge in treating this disease because this always leads to incomplete tumor removal and tumor recurrence, which can eventually result in treatment failure and the death of patients. Unfortunately, what makes this brain tumor behave so aggressively remains unclear. Therefore, no effective treatment has been developed for this deadly brain tumor. In our body, we have a gene called KISS, and this gene is essential for the production of a hormone known as kisspeptin. Kisspeptin is a type of brain hormone that is important to support the normal function of our reproductive system. Interestingly, very little is known about the roles of this brain hormone on the deadly brain tumor, even though both of them are present within the same part of the body, which is the brain. In my PhD studies, I discovered that this brain hormone could activate a program within the brain tumor cells, stimulating them to develop leg-like structures. Now let's take a look at the middle image on the slide. This is a photo of the brain tumor cells that I captured under the microscope after adding the brain hormone. If you watch closely over the regions pointed by white arrows, you can see that many brain tumor cells develop leg-like structures after the brain hormone was given. For your information, these structures are functioning as the legs for the brain tumor cells, and they are crucial to enable the spreading of the tumor cells throughout the brain. So, this means that this brain hormone kisspeptin can drive the brain tumor to become aggressive by promoting the development of these leg-like structures. By knowing kisspeptin as the culprit that drives this brain tumor aggressive, this means that we can use a drug that can stop this brain hormone's action in treating this disease. So, what I plan to do next is, I would like to treat these brain tumor cells with an anti-kisspeptin drug, and I want to see whether this drug can reduce the aggressiveness of the brain tumor cells by stopping them from developing these leg-like structures. I hope that the findings of my project would eventually lead to the introduction of a new treatment for this deadly brain tumor that could be life-saving. Thank you.
Thank you, Min Yi Chow. Very exciting research, and I know there will be a lot of people that will be really hoping that you get some great results from your research. So thank you for that. Our next competitor tonight is from the Faculty of Pharmacy, Sam Mustafa, and his presentation is entitled Personalized Medicine, the Future of Prescribing.
Now, wouldn't it be just amazing if a clinician can personalize every prescription and give the right medication at the right dose to the right patient at the right time? Now, we know that in some patients, a medication can provide the desired therapeutic effect, but in others it may not work, or perhaps cause terrible side effects or even toxicity. This, in fact, is a challenge that clinicians face daily. For example, in depression, About half of patients do not respond to their first antidepressant prescription, and it may take trials of 2 or even 3 different antidepressant prescriptions to get the one that actually works. It is also estimated that about 1 in 10 of all hospital admissions are related to adverse drug reactions. These are really bad side effects that put people into hospital. So variability in how we respond to medications is extremely common, but can we do something about it? Well, there are many factors that influence how medications work, such as the person's age, their body weight, how well their kidney or liver is working, and also the types of medications they're currently taking. And we see that clinicians are generally good at recognizing them as being important, but we still see a significant number of patients that just don't respond to medications as expected. Now, in 2003, mapping of all the genes in a human being was completed. Genes are essentially the sets of instructions that we inherit from our parents that are responsible for making us who we are, what eye color we have, how we behave, and also our susceptibility to illness and disease. As a result of this amazing work, we now have a wealth of information about how our genes play such an important role in medication response. Performing genetic testing to assess medication response is called pharmacogenomics, which essentially means the study of how genes affect response to medications in a human being. Pharmacogenomic testing can help predict how slow or fast we process medications in the body, and can also help us to predict what dose and which type of medication to select for an individual person. I was able to show in a recent study that up to about 96% of Australians could get valuable information from pharmacogenomic testing, and that a big proportion of these patients were in fact taking medications that impact how their genes worked. So my PhD research focuses on using sophisticated modeling software to build a virtual twin of someone based on their genes, prescribed medications, and other important information to predict how medications are processed in the body, and also to better understand how genes affect medication response. Now, the aim of my research is to then guide clinicians in the selection of medication and dose, in the management of mental health conditions such as depression and also schizophrenia. And in doing so, hopefully to help optimize medication safety and effectiveness. Now, wouldn't it be just amazing if a clinician can prescribe the right medication at the right dose to the right patient at the right time?
Thank you, Sam. And yes, that would indeed be amazing. I really hope your research delivers the results that you are after. Our next competitor is from the Faculty of Science. Angus Rogers is his name, and his presentation is the hottest party in the world.
Imagine this, it's your 30th birthday. All of your friends have come to your party, but looking around you can see that the mingling isn't going quite as hoped. Your friends from high school and university are keeping to themselves, and the people you invited from work, well, they just won't leave the bar. Luckily, your parents are moving between the groups, telling embarrassing stories. Believe it or not, this party is happening 1,000 kilometers under your feet and at 1,000 degrees. It's the hottest party in the world. Deep in the earth, something amazing is happening. The Earth's crust, its uppermost skin, is being mixed up like a good martini and shared around. But just like when you party a little too hard, these martinis can resurface and often violently. It is the aim of my project to analyse these violent eruptions to determine what the contents of last night's cocktail was, or to leave analogy behind for a moment to determine how and why these volcanic eruptions occur by testing the chemistry of rocks at the Earth's surface. Now, because volcanoes draw up magma from deep within the Earth, they are actually one of our best resources for understanding how our planet has evolved over time. And the processes underpinning this study are also key for our understanding of how Earth operates as a living, breathing, and exceptionally interlinked system. Now, you might be wondering, how can a volcano tell us about the evolution of our planet? Well, the cocktail, just like the Earth, is made of many ingredients, but was there an olive or an onion in it? And was it shaken or stirred? Here, our ingredients actually represent different events in the Earth's history, like the impact of another planetary body, the migration of supercontinents, or even the development of a deposit of metals that we need for clean energy. So by using state-of-the-art lab equipment, I am tasting the flavours of the deep Earth to unravel its delicious secrets. Now, as everyone knows, all the best parties happen on tropical islands. It just so happens that my two field sites are Aitutaki and Lord Howe Island in the Pacific Ocean. But before you get too jealous, COVID has kept me indoors, so I've had to use off-the-shelf samples from past expeditions. And just like my friends at the party, the machines that I use require liquid samples. And as if it wasn't hard enough to turn a rock into a liquid, I also need to purify them to a single ingredient in order to extract the data that I need. This is kind of like taking a single drop of lime juice out of last night's cocktail. But even though at times it feels like I'm trying to squeeze blood from a stone, the results that I have from Lord Howe Island indicate that the island was partially constructed from ancient seafloor that got jammed down into the deep earth and erupted back at this volcano. And these early results are an excellent opportunity to further understand how recycling of seafloor can contribute to the growth of metal deposits that we need for a clean energy future. And I think that's something we can all drink to. Cheers.
Thank you, Angus. I have to say, when I saw the title of your presentation, I thought, well, that doesn't sound very COVID friendly. So I'm glad that you clarified that, and it's suitably scientific and you are following all lockdown rules. Our last competitor for tonight is our wild card. He is from the MNHS, Brian Haskins, and the title of his presentation is A Race Against Time.
I was 17 years old when my dad had a sudden cardiac arrest. To me, it looked like he was still breathing, so I didn't start CPR while I waited for the paramedics. When they arrived, I saw them exchange a glance which I now recognize as a silent "he's gone." They knew that without CPR, my dad had lost his race against time. You see, survival largely depends on what bystanders do before paramedics arrive. As for every minute without CPR defibrillation, there's a 10% less chance of survival. That's why my PhD investigates the optimization of bystanders for out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. Each year, 25,000 Australians of all ages have a sudden cardiac arrest. To help save a life, bystanders must do 3 simple things. Call 000 to help us on the way, start CPR by pushing on the chest, and shock using a public access defibrillator to restart the heart. Most of us can call 000, but many may question their ability to provide CPR in an emergency. To test this, we studied over 4,000 cardiac arrests, comparing survival rates for layperson and medical professional CPR. We found that when medical professionals provided CPR, there was a 50% increase in survival. However, this increase was mainly due to higher rates of bystander defibrillation and not superior CPR. We then assessed the impact of bystander defibrillation on survival by reviewing cardiac arrests in Victorian schools and GP clinics over the last 20 years. Most received bystander CPR, leading to a 35% survival rate. Impressively, early defibrillation more than doubled the odds of survival. However, less than 30% actually received defibrillation, which has prompted the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners to reconsider including defibrillators as required equipment in GP clinics. Bystander defibrillation not only improves survival rates, but we've shown it also improves the survivor's quality of life. At 12 months post-arrest, we compared over 1,500 survivors who either received bystander or paramedic defibrillation. We found that bystander shock survivors had a better quality of life, were more likely to be back at work, and to be living with their families without care. My research shows that bystander CPR and defibrillation could help save an additional 10,000 Australian lives every year. However, to do this, we need to change everyone's mindset from, "I don't know what to do," to "Quick, I know what to do, we can save them." To change this thinking early, CPR training should be mandatory in all Australian schools. And to ensure everyone can provide early defibrillation, we need more defibs in public and residential locations just like where you live. This will help all families across Australia win their race against time by calling, pushing, and shocking when required.
Thank you, Brian. I love a presentation that talks about saving thousands of lives. I think it's the kind of research we can all get behind. All right, and a big thank you to all our presenters. Weren't they amazing? But people at home, it's now your turn. So put down that canister of Pringles, dust the dust off your chest. It's time for you to vote in the People's Choice Awards. So what you need to do, you need to get your mobile phone or get your laptop, get your iPad, and you can vote in two ways. You can either go to the website that you can see on your screen, polev.com/3mt. It's really easy. See the name of the person that you want to vote for and vote for them. Or you can text with your phone to the number that you see on your screen. Text the word 3MT. It will immediately send you a response. When you get that response, you just shoot back the name or the letter of the person that you want to vote for. The next slide will show you the letter of the that corresponds to the name of the person that you want to vote for. Now, the winner of the People's Choice Award, they win a casual $500. So it pays to be popular, obviously. This award is sponsored by the Monash Graduate Association. You can see on your screen now the letter corresponding to the name of the competitor. So make sure you vote for your favourite one. You do only get to vote once, so choose wisely. And voting is only open for 3 minutes. So for God's sakes, get yourself together and vote now. Now, while we do encourage objectivity, nepotism is absolutely allowed. And I do notice that it's weird that my name is not on the list for the People's Choice Best Presenter category. It must be an administrative error. But I think we can all agree that we are in very good hands. The future leaders, the future policymakers, the future researchers, the future world changers, these are all the people that you've seen on the list. So whoever you vote for will be a winner. You've got 3 minutes now. The next week. All right. While that very relaxing music is playing in the background, we're going to push on. You still do have 1 minute to vote if you need to. But let's get moving, because now we have the next exciting installment, which is the Visualise Your Thesis competition. So what is this, you might ask? This is a competition that calls for participants to create an engaging 60-second audio-visual representation of their thesis that can be received by a general audience using a pre-supplied template. We got over 90 registrations. We had 22 submissions come in from a variety of faculties, including Monash Malaysia and IITB. And our top 5 finalists have joined us today, and we're going to showcase their amazing submissions. So good luck. Our first competitor is from the Faculty of MNHS. We have Lucy Cooper is the first presenter for the Visualise Your Thesis competition. And the title of her presentation is "The Best Defense is a Good Understanding, Improving Immune Responses in Chronic Viral Infection."
A virus enters your body, and a battle begins between your immune cells and the invading virus. Most of the time, your immune system wins and clears out the virus. But some viruses, like HIV, can't be fought off by your immune system, and instead you get an infection that persists inside your body, called a chronic infection. Why can't our immune system fight off chronic viruses? We don't fully know, but many immune cells become dysfunctional and exhausted. My research is focused on B cells, which are essential for mounting strong immune responses. I found that B cells in chronic viral infection had distinct physical changes that reduced their ability to function. I removed those physical changes using gene deletion experiments and found that these genetically altered B cells were better at targeting and fighting chronic viral infection, and our immune system was better at clearing the virus from our body. By understanding how our immune cells are manipulated by viruses, we can identify new ways to help our bodies fight against infection.
Thank you, Lucy. And audience, I don't know if you've heard, but there's this virus that's going around the world that's causing a bit of drama. And I have to wonder if research like Lucy's could actually be helpful. Our next competitor, also from the Faculty of MNHS, is Rhiannon Grant. And Rhianna's presentation is entitled From the Gut to the Lungs, How Microbes Affect Allergic Asthma.
Chances are you know or have met someone affected by allergies or asthma. Asthma affects around 300 million people worldwide and caused around 400,000 deaths in 2019. So what are we going to do about it? Let's look at your gut microbes. Scientists have discovered distinct differences between the microbes that live in the gut of healthy and asthmatic people. And these microbes can influence the way your body functions in surprising ways. Let's look a little closer. To survive, these microbes make molecules from the food you eat, and we call these molecules metabolites. These metabolites can travel from your gut into your blood and go throughout your body, where they make it to your lungs. From here, the metabolites can move out of your blood and into the cells that line the little air sacs where you breathe. And this is where my project is focused. I'm looking for specific metabolites that can act here to dampen allergic responses, which could lead to using these metabolites to improve the quality of life of those affected by allergic asthma.
Thank you, Rhiannon. That was fantastic. Our next competitor is from the Faculty of Engineering, Brian Jong, and his presentation is entitled Single Cell Powered Solutions.
A long time ago, life began from a single cell. Over millions of years, that cell became more complex, but it eventually became fossil fuels. Our continued search and significant use of fossil fuels has resulted in environmental impacts we need solutions for now. But what if we rewind the clock a bit, back to where life started? Single-cell bacteria can provide a solution. Bacteria that causes food poisoning, E. coli, can be safely and easily engineered to produce chemicals we get from fossil fuels, or chemicals that can replace the use of fossil fuels. My project looks at further engineering E. coli so that we can apply electricity to it. This will provide big advantages in chemical production. We could feed it with waste carbon dioxide to produce our vital chemicals, allowing us to keep progressing and keep building our future in a more sustainable way.
That was amazing, Brian. I don't know how you guys create all these phenomenal graphics. It's so impressive. I can barely create a PowerPoint. These are so clever. Our next competitor, also from MNHS, what is going on in that faculty, is Nikshay Karthigan, and his presentation is Personalizing Heart Failure Therapy.
Heart failure is a serious condition that affects more than 60 million people worldwide. This condition occurs when the heart can no longer fill with blood properly or pump blood well enough. Various treatments are available, including medications known as mineralocorticoid receptor blockers, which block a specific receptor involved in this condition. However, these medications can cause dangerous side effects, plus not all patients benefit from them. My research aims to develop a simple test to determine which patients will respond well to this medication. We are extracting a particular type of white blood cell from patients with heart failure before and after treatment with this medication. These cells, known as monocytes, play a role in the progression of heart failure and also contain a specific receptor which the medication blocks. By looking at the changes in gene expression in these cells before and after treatment and relating these changes to improvements in heart function, we aim to identify a set of genes that can be checked using a simple blood test, which will then help doctors personalize therapy and avoid potential side effects.
Amazing, Nikshay. Thank you so much for that. And our last presentation for tonight is from the Faculty of Science. It's Mitko Oldfield. Mitko's presentation is entitled Polariton Superfluids, Tackling the Next Climate Crisis.
The technology we use is inefficient. The circuits it relies on have a resistance, meaning when current flows through them, they waste energy in the form of heat. This heating has a significant effect on global warming, regardless of whether or not the input power is renewable. To combat this, we need to invest in zero-resistance technology. We can access this technology by forming something called a superfluid, which allows current to flow without wasting energy. Normally, superfluids need incredibly cold temperatures to form, but we can use funky little particles called polaritons, which are made of light and matter, to make this possible at room temperature. I'm currently looking at polaritons in different materials, helping to determine which material gives us long-lasting polaritons, and therefore long-lasting superfluids, at room temperature. By developing this on the global scale, we can tackle the next climate crisis head-on.
Thank you, Mitko, and 10 extra points for having that very cute dog in your presentation. All right, that is the end of the Visualise Your Thesis competition. A huge thanks to all the competitors and their fantastic presentations. I'm now going to invite the man with the big novelty checks, Professor Matthew Gillespie. He's going to say a few words and he is going to announce the winners. Over to you, Professor Gillespie.
Thank you very much, Susan. And again, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge people at our distant campuses. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the IITB sessions this year, as well as Malaysia, and we know the impacts of COVID. Whilst we're in lockdown here in Australia, we know what the impacts of COVID are in our regional partners, particularly in regional countries, India, Malaysia, and our soon campus in Indonesia. And our thoughts are with you because we know the trying times that you're going through, both personally and with your families and relatives. And it is one way that we can try and celebrate your successes by this medium. Each of you should be really proud because you've actually come through your university and faculty and campus selection processes to this point in time. I know that you've made your faculties proud, your supervisors proud, and the university proud. And I hope that the people who you're sharing your videos with, your family and your friends, now can digest and understand what your research is about, particularly when you have those family gatherings and you get together and everyone asks you, what do you actually do in layman's terms? We've seen two different medias here tonight in terms of the Visualise Your Thesis, as well as the 3-minute thesis competition, where you can espouse the values of what your work is to a lay audience. And that is a difficult conversation to have, that 15-second elevator pitch about what you do. But you've all done a great job. Now, I'd like to start with announcing the Visualise Your Thesis awards. In third place, which is receiving a $250 prize. And the winner of that is Lucy Cooper, Faculty of Medicine, Nursing and Health Science. The best defence is a good understanding, improving immune responses in chronic viral infection, or really how to beat chronic viral infections. Congratulations to Lucy. And this is where I can say to all recipients, the cheque will be in the mail, because it will be in the mail. It won't be handed to you de novo. Well done, Lucy. The second place winner is Brian Jong, Faculty of Engineering, Single Cell Powered Solutions. Again, congratulations to Brian. How to engineer Escherichia coli to actually become a chemical production plant for the future. Well done, Brian. Congratulations. And first place is to Mitko Oldfield, Faculty of Science, Pelletron Superfluids, tackling the next climate change crisis. And again, well done, Mitko. And I really do like it. You're towards zero resistance technology to result in more efficient circuitry development and reduce heat dissipation. Excuse me. Well done, Mitko.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Okay, so that's the Visualise Your Thesis field. Now we move into the 3 field. And what we're going to announce first is really the judging panel. I probably should have said this both for the Visualise Your Thesis as well as the 3MT judging. We had a difficult time as a judging panel. There wasn't a unanimous decision, and in boxing parlance, it'd be a split points decision on what we've come to look at. And again, I noticed the same even when I'm looking at the polling results that have come in for the 3MT competition. So the first is going to be the Monash Graduate Association People Choice Awards. This is your award. This is what you voted on tonight. And again, the voting was very close for this award, with the winner being, let me get to it straight away, Shabani Viravagan from Engineering, Self-Driving Cars in the Body, Understanding How Sperm Swim. So congratulations, Shabani, as well. Well done. The runner-up, and it's a recipient of a $2,000 cash prize, is Sam Mustafa, Faculty of Pharmacy, Personalised Medicine, the Future of Prescribing. Again, congratulations, Sam. So how are we going to optimise our pharmacogenomics and in silico approaches for drug optimisation? And the winner, and again, I'm happy to announce this one, this winner will progress from the Monash 3MT finals. They'll be a recipient of a $5,000 award and the chance to compete in the Australian and the Asia Pacific final. So again, as Mark Palange would have used to say, no stress, but you are representing the university going forward. And that is Julian O'Shea from MADA, Faculty Art and Design Architecture, for a vehicle for change. Congratulations, Julian. And I really do like your strapline. We all need to be a vehicle for change for the future in all of our endeavours. So Julian, you could say something if you'd like.
Thank you, everyone. They were amazing. I'm incredibly inspired and humbled. And yeah, I'll try to do Monash as proud as I can do. And whoever wants to come for a spin on whatever vehicle I build, you're all first in line. Happy to have you.
I think you might have to, if you're going for a scooter, you might have to make a bigger model scooter to get us all on. But congratulations, Julian, and all the best. And to all participants here tonight, those who are actually supporters, those who are comrades, those are fellow PhD students, I wish you all the best in your endeavours to complete your PhD, secure a job and secure your dreams. Finally, for me now is really to say the thank yous. Thank you for the professionalism of the academic staff, the judges, supporting the local competitions that have happened in the faculties, as well as on our campuses. One of the issues out of the Visualising Your Thesis is that all got loaded up into Figshare. So I want to thank the library team, particularly Megan Deacon and Beth Pearson, for the compliance checks for our students had to meet the tight copyright rules around so many of the lodgements for the Visualise Your Thesis. My colleagues on the 3MT and Visualise Your Thesis judging panel, Rebecca Brown, Deputy Vice Chancellor and Senior Vice President, Mr. Fabian Moroney, Chief Marketing Officer, and I'd also like to thank Dr. Niran Weiss, Director of Research and Collections at the Museum Victoria. She's been a strong supporter of these events in the past and has been a judging panel in the past, and unfortunately she couldn't be here with us tonight. However, I'd encourage everyone to go onto the Monash or onto the Museums Victoria website and take part of one of their virtual tours of the museum. They are very instructive. They've been advertised during lockdown, and I'd encourage people to look at it. Finally, the team within the Monash Graduate Research Office, Michelle Lopez, Michelle Kett, who've managed to get this together again this year, and they will tell you it's more difficult to organise a virtual event than it is in person. Finally, to Mark Roberto, the man behind working with our ITs. I went out of Zoom tonight. The conference calls didn't work in the Chancellery tonight, but he's managed to secure us all up. He's managed to keep everyone going. He's done a great job. And finally, back to you, Susan. I'm going to thank you once again for your enthusiasm, for your support. I hope you can get the camera now onto the rapper Fabian Moroney. And I'd like to see him do it, because I always got the challenge in years gone past, Fabian, and I managed to dodge that bullet. So we'll see how you go. But
Maybe...
again, thanks very much, Susan, for all you've done and the support that you provided behind this competition for this year and in previous years. Thanks.
My
Susan.
pleasure. And I think what we all want to see is a rap battle between you two. I think that would be a great way to take the night out. Fabian, take it away. Oh, you're on mute, and maybe that's a good thing, Fabian.
I certainly don't think I should be rapping. I think the amazing talent tonight spoke for itself, and we should leave it at that.
A huge congratulations to all our finalists and prize winners. As I said before, the future is in good hands. I think we can all just relax because these people have got it. As the slide you can see shows, when the next final events are for the 3-minute thesis is the Asia Pacific finals, the Visualise Your Thesis international finals. You can see the dates there, and no pressure to Julian or Mitko, but you have the dreams of the entire Monash body on your shoulders, so do not disgrace us. Okay, big thanks again to all the participants. Thank you to all of you for coming along and supporting tonight. We really appreciate all your support. I hope to see you all back here next year. Good night.